Jaron Jarvis Channel, Top 20 Scary Stories of the Day from Reddit. No Sleep. 2018-09-19. Story 1, School Dinners. I come home from school with Grandma and she puts the television on for me. This is my favorite part of my day. It's just me and her and I love her. She gives me a plate of cookies and a glass of milk and I sit cross-legged on the floor watching Pokemon. Grandma must be getting old now. She sleeps in the armchair whilst I watch the cartoons. I look over at her every now and then when she startles me with the occasional snort. I put my hands to my mouth to stop myself giggling. This is the best time of day. If Grandma is having a long sleep, I'll go outside and play on my bike. I just ride up and down the front pavement, maybe play soccer, but always stay where she can see me if she looks out of the window. There's no other kids on our block, not really many families I guess. So I'm just alone. But the sun's in the sky and sky is blue. I play until they come home. Grandma leaves soon after Mama and Daddy come back. I carry on playing outside and wave bye-bye to Grandma as she walks off up the road. I try and stay out the way of Daddy after he finishes work. I don't want to get in his way again. I don't want to make him mad. From out here on the pavement with Grandma long gone now, the shouting starts. I'm hungry but I really am not stupid enough, even at 8 years old, to go in and say that. I sit on the front step and I wait until the shouting stops. It seems to go on forever. I really just want something to eat and to go to my room. In my head I imagine walking the walk through the lounge on tiptoes, trying to not disturb Mom or Dad. I'm not really that bothered about the food. I can wait until school dinner. I'll be hungry but it's better than what might happen if I bother my parents. The sun starts going down and I've started falling asleep on the step. My stomach rumbling wakes me up fully and I decide to be brave. I stand up and carefully open the front door and step inside. Dad's sat where Grandma was. He has a can of beer in one hand and in the other hand is that thing that looks like a test tube I once saw when we went on a field trip to a science laboratory. Mom's sat on the couch with a cigarette in her hand. Her head turns slowly to me and just says, "What? What do you want now?" I freeze. Her voice sounds that way where she can start screaming at me any minute. "Can I get some supper?" I ask quietly whilst looking at the floor. I know sometimes if I look in her eyes I sometimes make her mad. "What's that? You want some supper always after food, aren't you? Do you know how much it costs to feed you? It's about time you started making us money. And I have some things in mind," Mama says. Her voice comes out through her teeth. I can see her mouth purse up as she sucks on that cigarette. Dad seems to wake up, even though he was sat staring into space and not sleeping. His eyes look big and bright. He scares me when he stares at me like this. "Come here. If you want something to eat, come and give your old man a kiss first." I feel sick in my stomach and as I see his hands pull him up from the chair I turn and run upstairs. When he gets that way, it's either hit me or touch me. And I don't know which is worst. I run into my bedroom and shut the door. I run and get into bed and curl up tight in a ball. I know if I pull my knees up to my chest my stomach doesn't rumble as loud. I pull my blanket over me. I'm still in my uniform. I keep it on. The last thing I want to do when he's like that is take off any clothes. I lie there in the dark. I do not move. I screw up my eyes just wanting to sleep but I'm so hungry now. In my head I keep thinking of food. McDonald's fries, candy bars, bowls of Cheerios, heck I would even eat an apple now and I hate apples. I imagine creeping downstairs when they are asleep and going into the kitchen and getting myself some food. But they never seem to sleep. And now I can hear more men's voices downstairs. That's never a good sign. The last time I heard men's voices downstairs one came up here. I think about hiding under my bed but I know that's no use. I just lie still. And hold my breath for as long as I can. I lie there for what seems like forever. And I guess I fall asleep because the next thing I know I'm opening my eyes and it's light in my room. There's no curtain so the sun wakes me up when it comes up. I quietly get out of bed and open my bedroom door. I can't hear any voices. I step out of my room and carefully step down the stairs. I know where to put my feet so the steps don't creak. I see Dad sat there with that thing still in his hand, only now he's asleep. I guess Mom is in bed. I know if I wake Dad he will be mad. I always make him mad if I wake him. I know this is my only chance to save myself from this hunger. My tummy is so empty now. I creep into the kitchen and quietly open the fridge. There's nothing but a carton of milk. I unscrew the cap and smell it like Grandma showed me how to. The smell makes me want to be sick. I put it back. I open the cupboards I can reach. They are all empty. My heart sinks. At school I don't get any food until lunch. I look at the clock on the oven and it says 6:03. That means it's 6 hours until school lunch. I might only be 8, but I know that's a long time. Closing the last cupboard door, the disappointment had made me not take care and it slams shut. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I hear a huh? From the next room. Then loud footsteps and he's there. Dad's there in the doorway looking very mad. What are you doing in here, little bitch? He spits at me. Then steps slowly towards me. His eyes big and scary like last night. When he looks like that it's always a hitting that's coming. Not the other things. As he steps towards me, I feel that thing inside of me where I am angry too. I'm hungry. I'm tired and I've had enough. I close my eyes and I think really hard. I think really hard about his heart in his chest and I can see it. Not like when we draw hearts in school. I can see what looks like a red fruit and it's twitching like squeezing in and out in and out. And in my ears I can hear it going dum 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 dum. I squeeze my eyes shut and I focus on it. I make the noise slow down. Dum dum, dum dum, dum, dum. I hear a loud bang and open my eyes and Dad is on the floor holding his chest. I close my eyes again. And I picture that red fruit-like heart. Now it's twitching very slowly. Dum, dum. And in my mind I picture my little hand grabbing that fruit. It feels warm and wet. As I squeeze it in my mind I remember the hands on me. Touching me when I didn't want to be touched. Hitting me when I was hungry. And in my mind my little hand is squeezing this heart harder and tighter. With all my tears filling my screwed up eyes I squeezed as tight as I could and it no longer twitched. I opened my eyes when my jaws and head hurt and Dad wasn't moving anymore. He was laid there, his fingers looked all funny holding his chest, they looked like blue-black claws. His face was a funny blue color too. I looked at him for what seems forever. I step over him and I make my way to Mom's bedroom. By tomorrow I'll be in another house with another Mom and Dad. I hope this time it's nice ones. I'm so tired of moving around. I open Mom's bedroom door and before she can sit up and start shouting, I have closed my eyes and in my head my two little hands are squeezing the air out of her black lungs. I feel excited about having a different Mom and Dad. I can't wait to see my new home and new room. This was the second worst home I have had. Story 2, 10 Rules for the Night Security Guard. You ever see an opportunity, and think that's too good to be true? Read through the fine print, find out more about it, waiting with bated breath for when it turns out you're right? Here's a piece of advice I'll give you, I'm sure you've heard it before, I did too, yet here I am now. When something seems too good to be true, it is. Here I am now. 9 more hours sitting at this desk watching security feeds, then I get to go home and wonder why the fuck I believed that this overpaid and seemingly easy security position didn't come with a catch, why I didn't notice all the red flags in between seeing the offer online and getting here. Why I genuinely believe I'll be lucky to have the chance to regret my decision after my shift. Let's go back to earlier today. There I was, switching between browsing Reddit and flipping through local job offers, when a refresh of a local job listing site revealed something new that caught my eye. A basic security position, job description basically amounted to locking the doors at night, watching cameras, and calling the company if anything bad happened. And in the description, they said that they would pay $37 an hour. I was immediately skeptical of the high wage for a basic security job, especially considering the company had next to no info on it on the web. Their small website had pictures of the founders and outside of their buildings, but didn't even say what they did. However, I had the qualifications from a class I'd taken a year ago, and the possibility of walking away with $300 for a night's work seemed enticing even if it might have been a scam. I figured it couldn't hurt to send in a resume and see what happened. I got a call from a private number not an hour after submitting my application. The conversation was odd. The person on the other end of the line seemed like they had no experience hiring people before, and their voice seemed somewhat stressed and worried, a couple more red flags, but I was still in the it could be legit, and if it's not I haven't lost anything mindset. I'll try to recreate the phone conversation here. Hello, is this Christopher? Said the voice on the other end. I replied, yes, speaking. Who is this? This is, I work for, Company, Incorporated. I'm Daniel Edwards, head of HR. Former head of security. I'm calling because you submitted an application to us. Daniel paused. I waited expectantly for him to continue, but when the silence dragged on a moment too long I realized he was done speaking. What about my application? Oh, we'd like you to come for an interview. Your credentials looked good, yeah? Can you come to, address, in 2 hours? I was surprised. It seemed to me like either A, it was a scam, or B, they needed the position filled fast, maybe even by tonight. If it was the latter, I was pretty sure I could talk them up to an even higher wage, so I made my decision there. I'd check out the address on Google Street View and see if there was any other info on it before I went there, and if it seemed off I just wouldn't show up for the interview. Sure thing. Thank you. Daniel hung up the phone before I even finished speaking. Fast forward to 2 hours later, I was arriving at a fenced-off property in my city's industrial district, occupied by 2 buildings. They bore minimal markings and logos but appeared to be in fair condition, and supposedly still belonged to the company I was going there to see. I pulled my 2001 Honda Civic through the gate and into the parking lot. Something felt slightly off right away, though I didn't pick up on what it was until later. The parking lot was empty except for one other car. I stepped out and walked into the larger one-story building facing directly onto the parking lot. The door was unlocked. The receptionist's desk sat empty, and I recall noticing that there was dust on the blades of the fan that sat there. There was no email address in the post on the job site, and Daniel had called me from a private number. Unsure what to do, I waited in the small lobby for a few minutes and looked around at my surroundings. The entrance was a single glass door, and the front wall was made up of floor-to-ceiling windows. A metal shutter system rested on the outer wall above the glass, and a control panel on the wall inside. The receptionist's desk sat against the wall opposite the door. On either side of the room were 8 chairs and 2 small coffee tables, complete with old magazines. To the left, a short hallway led past a single door on either side, terminating at a heavy unpainted metal exterior door bearing dents of various sizes and shapes. For some odd reason, the exterior door made me feel uneasy. All 3 doors contained a single small window, the kind with wire mesh inside it, obscured by black paint or cloth on the inside. To the right led another hall. Oddly enough, I can't recall the length, and I usually have good attention to detail. Was it 4 doors on either side? No, 2? 16 maybe? I'm not even sure it had a length. I didn't look at the end of the right hallway. Behind the receptionist's desk was another long hallway terminating in a T-intersection. The first door on the left was made of brown painted metal and bore a small placard of security office. After waiting for a minute, a man rushed in through the front door. Sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm Joshua Collins, head of HR. He spoke quickly and seemed frantic and skittish. He didn't hold eye contact for more than a second at a time. As he shook my hand, I could feel that his palms were sweaty and cold. Christopher Newman. I paused for a second, suddenly hit by a wave of skepticism, and decided to test if he could keep his story straight. I spoke to a man named Daniel Edwards on the phone. I thought he said he was the head of HR. Joshua ignored me and continued, Mr. Newman, My company needs a new security guard fast. The last two quit this morning and we can't afford to go a night without someone watching the property. We've tried to get you here as fast as possible because you'll need to be ready to work by sunset. We're in a rush, so we'll skip the usual process. If you're able to start right now, then you can consider yourself hired. Your salary is $37 an hour, non-negotiable. Sign this NDA and you can start right now. I didn't like how aggressive he was being, but it had showed that I was right. They were looking for a fast, probably temporary hire, and I wasn't about to turn down that kind of money. I flipped through the NDA. It was a long one, so I skipped most of it, but I know how these contracts are. Don't disclose company secrets, yada yada. I signed it and followed Joshua to the security office. The orientation was short and simple. Here's your keychain. This one opens the door to the security office, this one opens most of the other offices, this one controls the shutter on the front windows. Here's your mag light. You can use it as a button in a pinch, but you're better to lock yourself in the office and call us if you see anything suspicious. All you have to do is sit in that office and watch the camera feeds. You don't need to patrol since you don't have a partner to watch the feeds when you're gone. We don't provide a uniform, just put your badge on your shirt. Front door's the only one that's unlocked right now. Ignore the other exterior doors and the offices in the long hallway. Lock the front gate. That's it. What's this binder for? I asked, pointing at a white binder on the desk, bearing the company logo. Oh, read that during your shift. Joshua looked uncomfortable at the mention of the binder, and avoided my gaze as he stammered out his reply. He didn't wait to see if I had further questions before he hurriedly left, getting into the only car in the parking lot, apart from mine, and speeding off. I assumed my security guard role right away. I went outside and locked the gate, closed the metal shutter over the front glass, and locked the front door. Then I sealed myself in the security office and opened the binder up. That binder is what prompted me to write this down. When I opened it, I expected a long, boring write-up of company policy involving various situations that may happen after hours, specific rules for dealing with burglars and vandals, you know, that sort of thing. Instead, there was only one page. What was on that page made me realize that this job was, in fact, too good to be true, and is why I'm genuinely terrified right now. Welcome to Redacted, Incorporated. There are 10 company rules security personnel must follow in order to ensure their safety and well-being. The long hallway is off limits. If you cross the threshold from the lobby, turn around immediately and walk back. Do not run. Do not look at the long hallway for prolonged periods. If any security camera shows it, shut it down immediately. Do not open the door at the end of the short hallway. Building 2 is off limits and is to be observed only via camera feeds. If you must go outside, use only the front door. The coffee machine will turn on automatically at 2:17 a.m. Ensure a cup is placed beneath it prior to this time. When the liquid is dispensed into the cup, place it outside the door of the security office. Lock the door and do not open it again until 2:37 a.m. Do not leave the security office between 4:01 and 4:02 a.m. If you hear a female voice coming from an indeterminate point within the building, unlock the door on the left of the short hallway. Do not enter the room unless the voice invites you to do so. Do not look at her face. If you hear a male voice upon unlocking the door, return to the security office immediately. If you feel you are in immediate danger, call this number using the phone in the security office. Redacted, do not contact emergency services before sunrise. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to leave, Redacted, Incorporated before sunrise. I have 9 hours left in this shift. I'd rather walk out of here broke than stick around for the rest of the night, but the instructions made it clear that I'll have to stick it out till morning. Wish me luck. Update, it's 2:15 a.m. It's been fairly uneventful so far, and I hope I don't jinx it by saying that. I've just stayed in the office and split my time between watching security camera feeds and browsing Reddit to calm my nerves. It's tea and coffee time in 2 minutes, the cup is already in place and I'm hoping everything goes well. Update 2, 3:30 a.m. Demon coffee disappeared after being left outside the door. I heard something knocking and scratching at the door during the time I was told to keep it closed, though I wasn't able to see it on the cameras. The only one watching the office door started showing the long hallway and I had to turn it off. There's a persistent shadow in the corner of the room, that seems darker than a normal shadow. It doesn't go away even when I shine my flashlight right at it. The instructions didn't say anything about a shadow, so I'm just going to not touch it and occasionally check to see if it changes size or moves or anything. Still haven't heard the woman's voice. I could have sworn I glimpsed a humanoid figure on the building 2 cameras a few times, though I can't find it when I inspect the feeds more closely. I no longer have even the slightest doubt that this place is haunted as shit. Story 3, what kind of bird is this? Hi Reddit. I'm really sorry to be posting here. I tried r/birding but my post was deleted because they thought I was trolling them. A kind user reached out and messaged me directly, saying that I should try this board. I haven't had much of a chance to go through the other posts, but I've been told you're good at identifying unusual situations and I think I might have one of those. Basically, early in July this year, I found an abandoned chick. I don't know how it's been for all of you, but I live in the UK and I found this little guy at the beginning of our roasting 6-week heat wave. There was a defeated, used handkerchief quality to all the drooping leaves on the trees, and the whole of my street smelled like cooking tarmac for days at a time. We don't handle heat well here, practically no one has an aircon unit because it never really gets hot enough to justify the cost, and the buildings are built for cool temperate weather. So we all just stew once it gets above 25 degrees. I was going for a walk on what was still the shady side of the street because it was cooler than sitting in my flat, where the double-glazed windows, open as wide as I could get them, were still letting in enough sun to turn all my rooms into ovens. I found my bird pal in the middle of the pavement, just lying on his stomach, all alone, making weird peeping noises. He was an ugly little thing. He looked like a deformed prawn wearing a misshapen party hat as a beak, if I'm honest. He could just about see through his eyes, but seemed like he was having a hell of a time focusing. He had a few scraggly feathers starting to show through on his back, but they looked like they were about to admit defeat and molt off through sheer disgust. There weren't any trees near to where he'd fallen, and I couldn't see any nests in the bushes nearby. I stuck my head in all of them. I had no idea where he'd come from, it was like he'd dropped out of the sky. I was in 2 minds about touching him, but I reasoned he must have been in agony down there on the hot pavement, so I picked him up and carried him back to my house. I made him a sort of nest by filling an old takeaway carton with plant detritus from my back garden. I really have no idea about birds. I left the nest in my bathroom, the coolest room in the house at the time. I fed him some water via an eyedropper and gave him some bits of mince. He took to both enthusiastically, but he looked like he was on the way out anyway, so I figured I should just give him somewhere comfortable to shuffle off his extremely ugly mortal coil. Kind of to my amazement, he didn't die within hours, or even by the end of the next day. He kept on supping on water and mince and making his weird peeps. Actually, it was the water thing that first made r/birding blow up at me. Some curtain twitching knoll gave me unbelievable shit for watering my baby bird pal. Apparently nestlings get all the water they need from the food they eat and you shouldn't ever give them water. But my bird really seemed to need that water. After I got internet yelled at, I tried withholding it, worried I was going to kill the little guy. But it went badly. I used to give him water and mince first thing in the morning, about 10 a.m. for me. Please be gentle. I gave him his mince but not his water. Well, after only about quarter of an hour, he went limp and lethargic. After half a day, I work from home, I was checking in on him like a good mother bird. He was actually panting, his little tongue lolling out of his beak. It was horrible. I gave him a few drops from the eyedropper and he perked up immediately. I've never seen such an obvious bit of cause and effect. I tried to explain this but I got downvoted into oblivion and called some pretty saucy names. I was spooked by the experience, I have to say. I'd had him less than a week by this time, but I was already getting quite attached to him. We had have this cool dumb ritual where I'd come into the bathroom to brush my teeth and he'd perk up. I have an electric toothbrush and he really likes the sound of it. When I switch it on, he mimics the noise. Like I say, what I know about birds you could probably write in big script on a small post-it, but I thought this was neat and unusual. I figured I had have an unusually intelligent bird. Also we pull these faces at one another. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After about 3 weeks, we're getting to the beginning of August here, my good avian dude got a bit exploratory. I found out about this when I was copy editing one armpit hot afternoon in my office, box room with pretensions, which is across from the bathroom. I heard some shuffling, a scrape, a thump and a noise like, well, like an electric toothbrush, but with the battery power of a buzzsaw. I go running into the bathroom and there's my boy on the floor, marching about and blinking furiously up at me. A couple more days and he was stomping about my flat like we're married and I forgot to take the rubbish out. And I mean he's stomping. He lifts his feet and smacks them back down again like he's a goose-stepping soldier. I moved the takeaway cart into my room and for the past few weeks he's been sleeping on my bedside table, next to my water glass and my watch. He likes the watch too. Sometimes I drop off to sleep listening to him count the seconds between the seconds in crisp little clicks. He didn't fly. He still doesn't. He walks, every day more and more securely, and he can climb things using his beak and his feet pretty well, but he doesn't fly. Actually his wings aren't really growing the way the rest of him is. When he first moved into my room, they'd got a bit of down on them, but they're kind of noodly. They look like messed up little arms. The feathers were coming in on the rest of his body but they looked slick, strange, dun-colored. Out of the corner of my eye, they looked like sheafs of skin. His body was changing too. I'm a denizen of the 21st century and so obviously I've Google image searched weird-ass bird silhouette, but my Tweety Pie buddy seemed to be in the middle of developing a whole new shape. When I found him, I was sort of expecting something more like a sparrow or a thrush. By the time we got to mid-August, he was looking more upright, like an Indian runner duck. Look up YouTube videos of Indian runner ducks if you want a good time, but his face was strange. So I took to r/birding again. Big mistake. I tried to explain the changes my bird pal was going through, and I got 2 responses, both of which were variations on, "You're nonsensical and also an idiot, we need a picture." So I took a picture and put it on Imager, but with the caveat that it wasn't the best portrait of my leathery feathery roommate, because you couldn't really see his teeth. Wow, they did not like that. If you've never had Redditors named things like pheasant_fan and give a goldfinch call you, and I quote, time-wasting oxygen-sapping troll who'll die alone, I can't say I'd recommend it as an experience. Don't know what it is about the bird community but they're a rageful bunch. I didn't see what was wrong with the teeth. I thought they were ugly, sure, but kind of adorable. Back to the toothbrushing game, when I'd brush my teeth, I'd bare my teeth at him, so he could see what I was doing with the machine he liked so much. And in return, he'd open his beak, and weave his head around so I could see all the little tooth-like serrations in his beak. It was cute as heck. When he moved out of the bathroom, we'd still bare our teeth at each other at random points in the day, and he'd make electric toothbrush noises. It was our ritual. Yes, you've guessed it, it's pretty lonely working from home every day. Nowadays, those teeth a bit bigger than serrations. They're quite white, actually, a whole different color to his beak, and look for all the world like rows of incisors. They're getting too big for his beak. Actually, lots of things about his changed body look like they don't quite fit on a bird. It's like he's trying to change his species while he's growing. I'm starting to worry that I've been a bad bird parent. I think a lot about what r/birding said about how to feed lost nestlings, less about how I should go suck my mum. I worry that the mince I gave him has messed him up in some way. Take this example. Last week, I went out for a drink with a friend, because I don't spend all of my time playing mother hen to my deformed baby chicken. When I came home, I was hit with the stench of vinegar. I snapped on the light to my kitchen out of force of habit. The open fridge door illuminated the tragic scene. It was carnage in there. The smell was coming from a smashed bottle of pickled onions, but there were torn-up vegetables, broken jars of condiments, pulverized yogurt cartons and one defeated block of tofu strewn across the floor. In the middle of the room was my toothy Smiler, chewing on a raw steak I'd been saving for Friday. When I came in, he looked up very guiltily and gave me a big, sheepish, silly, but nonetheless very sharp grin. He'd obviously gotten hungry and broken into the fridge, looking for meat. If you were wondering how he'd gotten into the fridge, I should maybe mention that he's strangely strong. That was last week. Something weirder happened last night. I don't have a TV but I watch Netflix on my laptop, in my bed, on a TV tray, because I know how to live. My noodle wing brother likes to watch as well, from the bedside table or even, if it's an especially good film, on the pillow next to me. Sometimes he mimics the sounds he hears, especially the noisier sound effects. Occasionally it's almost like he's trying to form words. Not always the sounds that he's just heard someone speaking either. Croaking, creaking syllables that I could swear are on the edge of meaning. Rattling noises that sound almost like laughter. It's kind of cool. I figure he must have some parrot in him somewhere. Anyway, we were watching a horror film. I like horror films. They're silly. To be specific, we were watching The Babadook. There's a scene in The Babadook where the mother sees, well, the Babadook. It's in a house across the road and it's just standing in the kitchen. It's a mild jump scare. Except it must have been a major jump scare for my bird pal because he sank his teeth into my arm. Those teeth are really sharp. I reacted pretty violently, which I regret. I smacked him off with my other hand, shrieking. I know, I just hate admitting it, that I smacked much harder than I should have done. I was in shock. I know you should never hit an animal, they don't understand it. And I know he was just surprised by the spooky image on the screen. But it really, really hurt, and in those seconds I had my own bizarre animal jolt of panic, like I was really in danger. This was all over in about 3 seconds and the guilt came flooding in like I'd kicked a hole in a dam. I tried to talk to my little pal softly, to reassure him that things were okay, but he stared at me, all of his teeth bared and all of them beaded with blood. He was making these strange noises that I'd never heard before. Hey. 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 I tried to reach for him to pet his head, and he did a pitch-perfect imitation of my own shriek. Then he did it again. And again. Well, I didn't need that replayed. I went into the kitchen to clean my arm up. When I came back with a big old white bandage over the wound and a fresh glass of water, he seemed back to normal. The blood was all gone when he bared his teeth at me and made the electric toothbrush noise. I was so relieved. I bared my teeth right back and we got into a stupid little tooth-baring, head-swaying dance. Routine as usual, he followed me into the bathroom for the real deal as I brushed my teeth, politely occupied himself plucking at tissues in my bin while I performed my ablutions/took a crap, and then we went to bed. At about 3 a.m. last night, I was woken up by the sound of my bird friend's noises. He was on my bedside table, making those near-language noises and low, weird gurgles. In the pitch black of the night, they didn't sound quite so cute. They sounded primal and hungry. I reached out and switched on the light. My bird wasn't on the bedside table. He was by my head on the pillow, and every single one of his teeth was bared over my eye. What I wanted to ask you guys was, what kind of bird do I have? Story 4, I think something lives in the lake behind my house. Something happened to me last night, and I know I won't be able to explain without sounding insane, but I have to tell someone. All my life I was told to stay away from the lake, which was really just a pond that sat just past my backyard. I didn't know why I wasn't to go near it, but now I finally do, and I wish I didn't. I'll start at the beginning. I'm visiting my parents and have been here for a few days, staying in my childhood bedroom. When exploring all my old stuff on my first night there I found a diary, hidden away under my mattress. It was an old one of mine from middle school that I had only used for a few months. When I read it I found that some of the entries were a bit unusual. I wrote it off as the wild imagination of a kid who was at the age where they tend to over-exaggerate things. An age where kids got into things they weren't supposed to. I'll write some of the stranger entries below. Mama warned me not to go by the lake again today. She said the water is especially dangerous around these times. I'm not sure what she means, but I think it's 'cause since it's so hot out right now more kids are tempted to jump in it to cool off. Even though most kids don't like the lake and call it creepy 'cause it has swampy black water, they still sometimes try to get into it, but Mama always chases them off. At school they tease me and call her a witch, but she don't act like that at home. Only about the lake. I was dared by Tommy to go up to the edge of the lake today and look into it. I was scared he would push me in if I got close to it, but he promised to stay back, so I went right up to the edge and looked into the dark water. I swear something was staring back at me. I thought I saw two black eyes peeking out like one of those crocodiles you see on the Discovery Channel. It scared me so bad I ran away even though Tommy was laughing at me when I did it. After that I didn't go by the water no more. Tommy went missing and I think it's my fault. He kept teasing me about being scared of the water, so I told him he was too chicken to do it either and dared him to touch the water if he was so brave. He said he was gonna and to meet him by the lake after school to watch, but when I went there after school I didn't see him. I waited up for a while but heard Mama calling for me and had to leave. Then he didn't show up at school the next day, or the one after that. When the cops showed up and told us that he never went home after school that day, I knew the water took him, the thing that lives in the water. Reading about Tommy sent chills up my spine, not because it was a haunting memory, but because I had no recollection of him at all. I didn't even remember writing those passages. I stuffed the book back under the mattress and went to bed, making sure to sleep on my side facing away from the window that showed the lake in the distance, now surrounded by a tall chain-link fence that I'm sure my mother had put up. That was my first night. The second night, I came home from hanging out with some old friends, a little tipsy from going to the bar with them. I laid in my bed for a few minutes before I heard the singing. It sounded like a woman's singing. It drifted through my window, and I knew if I listened closely it would be coming from the direction of the lake. I slowly lifted my head and looked out the window, but nothing was there except for the still black water, sitting inside its cage. There was a small splash when I laid my head back down, but the singing didn't stop. I quickly put my earbuds and willed myself to sleep. It must have worked because the next day I woke up to the sun shining in my window and birds chirping. So I of course, wrote off the singing to my tipsy, half-asleep, brain playing tricks on me. What else could it be, after all? Night 3, I ended up in bed much same as the night before. But this night when the singing began and I turned my head to look out the window, someone was standing there, at the edge of the lake. I got up and walked to my window and saw that it was a naked woman, with white skin and hair that seemed to be glowing under the night sky. She seemed to be looking right at me and her eyes were black. I felt drawn to her, and without thinking began to climb out my bedroom window. I think it was lucky that I had some drinks in me that night because I was uncoordinated and caught my pant leg on the window pane, causing myself to fall back into my room and knock myself out of my daze. When I got up and looked back at where she had been, she was gone. Shaken, I went back to bed, making sure to put in my earbuds this time. The next night, last night, I wanted to forget. I realized this is the dumbest thing I could do, but at the time I was convinced that I was losing my mind. I got drunk at the bar and found myself walking home. I made it to my front door and stopped. The singing had started again. I found myself walking into my backyard, almost against my will, towards the lake. The woman was standing there, just as she had last night, but this time, she was facing the water. And as I approached, she slowly stepped into it. I watched in horror as she continued into it until the top of her head disappeared below the water. I had never seen anyone touch that water, let alone go into it. I stumbled forward, feeling, for some reason, like I had to help her. I climbed the chain-link fence and walked to the edge of the water. And I saw her eyes, looking up at me. Black eyes, like a crocodile, and when it began to raise its head out of the water, I found myself wishing it was. It looked almost like a horse, but with its skin rotting and falling off in places, and dark seaweed in the place of hair. The smell of death washed over me and began to push myself backwards as it pulled back its lips, showing its teeth not like a horse's, but like broken glass shoved into its gums. It was almost like it was smiling. The soulless eyes stared at me for a second before it moved. Or at least I think it did. I didn't even see it, but I felt the pain flare in my leg as the thing sunk its teeth deep into my calf. I pushed my fingers into the dirt and grabbed at the grass, trying to pull myself away. My fingertips brushed the fence, but it pulled me back with a jerk. With one more effort I looked back at the creature and kicked it with my free leg as hard as I could. I felt its skull cave in under my foot and it screamed with the voice of a woman. I felt it let go of my leg and made a dash for the fence, pulling myself over it as fast as I could with only one usable leg. I fell to the other side and found it staring at me from the water, the place where I had kicked it a gaping hole, showing the ruined insides of its head. It continued looking at me as it sank slowly back into the water. It felt like a promise, that it wouldn't give up. I dragged myself to the house and fainted right outside the door. I woke up in my bed. I remembered what had happened last night, but it seemed more like a dream in my half-awake state. It wasn't until I sat up and felt pain sear in my leg that I was sure it was real. I pulled the blankets back and saw that it had been cleaned and bandaged. When I looked up from my leg, I saw my mother, sitting in the corner of the room, looking at her hands. "I'm sorry," is all she said at first, and then she explained the rest to me. Her family had moved into the house when she was a child without knowing about the creature. She found out when her brother was taken, and she watched it happen. I had never known that she had a brother once. She told me that she knew it wanted her next. She told her parents that she had seen her brother drown, knowing that they wouldn't believe her about the creature, and she stayed away from the water all her life by convincing her parents she was scared of water because of what happened to her brother, which wasn't exactly a lie. She slept with music on every night, and when she got older she moved out. Then her parents died, and she inherited the house. She came back, and found that kids had been disappearing more and more since she had moved away, and the police were at a loss. Nobody knew where they had went. But she did. So she decided to protect the town from the creature herself, and by doing so, she became the witch. When she had me, she made sure I always stayed away from the water. Made sure I knew that I was not allowed near it. Once I became an adult, she didn't worry about me visiting because it usually only takes kids. She thinks that it has always wanted me, especially because it hates her. She stopped its flow of food and it wanted to take me as revenge. I am lucky to be alive, and my parents are moving out next month. They've decided it's finally time to move on. But they will leave a set of rules for the next homeowner about the lake, and hope they listen. Or they will learn the hard way, like I did. Story 5, They took my baby from me. I tucked my hood safely over my head so my face wouldn't be seen and held tightly to my baby as I weaved through the crowded lobby and into the cold night air. The hospital was on a busy road, so it was easy to slip into the hustling streets as the alarm started blaring from behind me and armed guards began spilling from the doors. I felt safe though. I finally had my baby with me tucked in my arms carefully. I had been planning on getting her back for so long, and now I finally had her. When I got home, baby was cooing and I put her in her bed that I had prepared for her. I was so happy to finally have her with me. You don't understand what it does to a mother to be away from her baby. It's maddening. But all is well now. She is mine. And nobody else's. Nobody could take her away now that she is safe with me. I called in sick to work and told them I would be gone for 2 weeks at least for personal reasons. I couldn't risk leaving baby here alone. Somebody might come to take her away from me again. I called my mom to tell her that I had baby and that baby was mine now, but she got mad. She told me to take baby back to that place, but she just doesn't understand. She told me that it was better for baby to be in that place, but she was not a real mother to me, so she doesn't understand my bond with baby. She never understood me, even as a child. She put me in a house with no windows when I was young for cutting a cat. I didn't mean to hurt cat, I just wanted cat babies that were growing in cat. I don't know why people say that babies are hard work. Babies are so easy. At least my baby is so easy. Even though she cried the first day, she was very quiet because she got used to me. She doesn't eat very much either. My baby is very cheap to take care of. I love baby. Baby loves me very much. She sleeps all the time because she is so comfortable with me. She is very still all the time and I love to watch her sleep. Baby has begun to stink, but each time I go to change her diaper nothing is there. Baby probably has stomach problems. I will take baby to the doctor soon to see what is wrong with baby. Doctor took baby away from because he said baby is dead, but he just wanted to take her back to the people who made her. He is lying and he doesn't know that baby is just sleeping. I tried to take baby with me but they called the cops and they told me I was in trouble for stealing baby. But I didn't steal baby. Baby was mine since Jenna first got pregnant. An angel told me that Jenna had my baby in her stomach. The angel told me that just because you make a baby doesn't mean it's yours. They took my baby from me. Story 6, I didn't attend my job interview. I don't know if anyone will believe me. It's hard to believe that an employer could list a wrong location, or not be who they claim. I had just left high school when it started. I had got my grades, a mixture between C's and B's. My next step was to attend college, and study the business sector. I had always wanted to be an administrator for a company, or even work in the HR department. I had no money to go to college, and my mum was a single parent who didn't earn much. So, I decided that I would get a job and save up the money, so I could make my dreams come true. It was a bit difficult finding a job in my town for school leavers. I looked on the job websites that I could. I would search different sites twice a day, and this went on for 2 days. I finally found a job vacancy looking for an administrative assistant. It offered on-the-job training, and claimed to be ideal for school leavers, and those looking to gain further work experience. But, there was no company name listed. Weird. I thought nothing of it, thinking that it was a company that had recently opened. I know, it sounds stupid. I feel stupid thinking back. That should have been a red flag to me. However, I clicked apply, punched in my phone number and email, and waited. Fast forward 2 days, and I receive a phone call. Butterflies instantly fill my stomach, and I answer instantly. I didn't recognize the number, so my mind went back to the job application. Hello. I greeted the caller, my voice was unsure. Hello, is this Miss Johnson? The voice belonged to a female, who definitely sounded professional. Yes it is. Who is this? My name is Rachel, I'm calling in regards to the job application you applied for. Oh, right. I kicked myself for being awkward. She must have thought I was a right weirdo. Yes. We were wondering if you would like to come in for a job interview tomorrow at 3 o'clock. When she asked me this, her voice seemed to grow unsure. It wasn't the professional tone she used at the beginning. It was almost like she was as nervous as I was. Yes, I would love to. I answered, happy that I was successful enough to get a call back. Okay. See you then. The phone line went dead. She had hung up. For the rest of the day, I started to research the web for job interview tips and etiquette. Mainly choosing Pinterest as my choice. My mum was happy to see me standing on my own 2 feet, and not relying on her to make my future. The next day, I was dressed appropriately for the interview. Black blazer, white shirt, black shoes and tights. I decided to take my grade sheet from school to show them. My mum had given me some money so I could get a cab, as she was going to be at work and unable to give me a lift there and back. So, I called a cab and waited. It didn't take too long to arrive, maybe 10 minutes. I gave the address of the company to the cab driver, and off we went. Along the way, I kept looking over the interview tips from Pinterest. I was feeling nervous. It was my first interview. I was hopeful to pass this stage. Here we are. The cab driver said. We was pulled up outside the building. It didn't look like a company that had just opened. It looked like it had been abandoned for a while. It resembled an old warehouse building. The area was completely empty. No cars, no company vans or trucks. Just me and the cab driver. "Are you sure this is the place?" I asked the driver. "I'm completely sure, miss," he replied. I nodded and paid before getting out. I stood at the curb and looked around. The gates were rusty, with only a hint of black that used to color them. The cab driver must have sensed my hesitance, because he asked if I wanted him to wait here for me. I told him that I would like that, before making my way to the gates, and walking through. There was no signs that anyone had been there recently, no cigarette butts on the floor, no track marks from vehicles, and no shoe imprints. As I was taking in my surroundings, I had a bad feeling about this place. Something was urging me to leave in my mind. To my left was a skip. The yellow paint was being taken over by rust. So, that had been here for a while. But what really caught my attention was the discarded black blazer and white shirt on the floor. On inspection, the white shirt looked creased and dirty. What admin assistant throws their work clothes away? That was it. I went back to the cab and told him to drive me back to my home address. Something didn't feel right about that place. Since then, I have received voicemails from the so-called company. It started 20 minutes after the interview was meant to start. The voicemails are often left by a male, telling me to come in for the interview. At first he was polite, but he started becoming impatient. In the last message, I heard a female voice whisper in the background. "Is she coming? Will I be free?" I dread to think of what happens inside that building. Or how long the workers have been there. Story 7, I woke up in a sewer. I have been awake for 3 days straight. I haven't talked to anyone, except my employer, to tell them that I'm taking my vacation leave. I cannot for the life of me get what I've read out of my mind. I just need to vent. I don't want to make this about me in the slightest, this is about her. But here is a little obligatory background information to ease you into what you're about to read. I work for the city as a sewer system maintenance and repair technician. 3 days ago I was called out to a new subdivision being built on the outskirts of our quiet little town. It started construction 2 years ago, with the sewer system being installed early on into the project. This was just a routine checkup to see that everything is up to code before they start finishing up the houses. The subdivision is being hailed as Pinewood and the slogan on the sign reads, "There's no other place like it." What a fucking disastrous slogan. But after what I discovered in the pipes below this little slice of false paradise, it is an unfortunately rather true statement. And before I take what I found to the police station this afternoon, me, and, her, are the only two that know it. So there I was alone in the tunnels as per usual. I see that everything is up to code, and this was going to be a rather easy day, until my trek along the path led me to a little black journal. It was just laying there along the walkway, and this is where it all began. I obviously was taken back by this little grim discovery. I've seen a lot of shit down in the sewers before, pun intended, but never have I come across an item like this just laying on the walkway beside the water. So, I of course picked it up. But I didn't stop to read it then, I waited until I got home. And here we are. This journal belonged to a woman named Jane. And I will share with you several entries from these insidious pages. Not all of them though, out of respect to her, but I will share the important ones, so you know what she went through, in what I believe to be the final days of her life. Her story needs to be heard. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. Entry number 1. Date unknown. I can't scream for help anymore. I've lost my voice trying to for what seemed to be several hours. No one can hear me. No one is coming. I figured I might as well use this book that he, or she, or they, left for me. My name is Jane. I'm 32 years old and I woke up in a sewer. All I can remember is yesterday morning. I was down by the lake feeding the ducks like I usually do on the weekends. Nothing was out of the ordinary, except for this black truck that was parked by the hiking trails. I have never seen it before, and I just thought I should mention it in case I. Never mind. Positive mental attitude. My parents always instilled in me, But there is nothing positive about this. All they left me was a large flashlight, this journal and 2 pencils, and several water bottles. At this point I am starving, my stomach has been rumbling for hours, and I can't sleep. And for all of you asking yourselves why doesn't she just get out of there? Well, I'd love to, but I'm paraplegic. Maybe that's why they chose me. I must have seemed to be an easy target. But I lost the use of my legs fighting for this country. And I'll be damned if I just give up down here. I won't go down without a fight. I tried crawling in both directions to see if I could find a ladder, but when I did, that's when I first heard the whistling. They were whistling at me down the dark tunnel, so I turned back, and here's where I am. This is where I either die, or they do. End of entry. Entry number 4. Date unknown. Hunger is at an all-time high. I passed out some time ago. And when I woke up my water bottles have been refilled. And they must have read what I wrote because dinner arrived. I was sitting here, admittedly crying to myself, when I heard something coming towards me rapidly. I shined the flashlight to my left and there it was, coming right for me. A remote-control truck, exactly like the one that was parked out front of the hiking trails. It had a paper plate taped to it with a note on top. I just stared at it until it honked at me. I was terrified, but the hunger drove me to crawl over and see what it was. The note said, "Bon appetit." And the plate was full of fucking cockroaches. I didn't care. I ate them. I needed to. And then the truck just turned around and drove off back into the dark abyss. This is my life now. But this still where I die, or they do. End of entry. For the next entry, I have figured out what it is that these fucking monsters were playing for Jane, and if you dare, you can find the song on YouTube. It's called Grave in the Pines by Clayton McMillan. But you have been warned. Her story is one of 2 of the reasons I haven't slept for 3 days, the second reason is this fucking song. Entry number 8. Date unknown. This fucking song, I hate this fucking song. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I can't tell if it's been a day or 2 or fucking months. I'm losing track of time. There's no way to tell what time it is in this fucking goddamn nightmare. But this song has been playing forever. In the pines, where the sun never shines. I'm even starting to sing along to it. It's burned its way into my goddamn subconscious. And the truck keeps zooming back and forth on the walkway across the water. It hasn't brought me any more food in a day. I'm fed up, they want me to crack. But I can't crack. I have to live. I have to see my parents again. I have to make it out of here. Turn off the fucking music. I just screamed. And it worked. It fucking worked. I feel euphoric. What the fuck was that? Someone is banging a pipe against the tunnel, and I can't see them, but I know that they are there. I miss my parents. I miss them. But I am not dying down here. I am not. I can't. This is where I do, or they do. End of entry. This next one is the last one in the journal. And after I finish typing it out, I'm going to the police station with the journal. Jane, if somehow you made it out of there, I am so sorry for you and what you had to endure. If the person or persons responsible are somehow reading this, you are subhuman. You deserve to die. You better hope that there is no such thing as hell, because now I hope that there is such a place, and you belong there. Entry number 12. Date unknown. I passed out again. They've been reading what I have wrote again. Because standing directly across from me across the water are 2 mannequins. One male, one female. The male has a name tag that says hello, my name is Dad, and the female's reads hello, my name is Mom. They are just smiling at me, and I can't smile anymore. The first pencil has been worn down to the nub. And I'd be lying to you if I haven't considered using the second one on myself. I won't. If I do, then they win. They want me to lose. They want me to suffer, they want me to give up. They can't win. This is bigger than me. This is about what's good and what's evil in this world. And this is my world now, down here, with them. And evil isn't going to win. It may seem like it wins up back in the normal world more often than not, but good needs to prevail for once. I have heard whoever it is enter this tunnel before, and it's always from the left. There must be a ladder all the way out there in hell, and I'm going. I'm taking this pencil, and this flashlight, and I'm going. This journal has been my only solace. This journal is my Bible. This journal is all that's left of me. To my parents, I love you. I know that you're looking for me, and we'll see each other again one way or another. In this life or the next. To everyone else I've mentioned in other entries, those were my honest feelings towards you. And I love you all too. Your memories kept me alive this long, and for that, I love you more than you could possibly imagine. But this is it. I'm about to leave, and this is either where I die. Or they do. End of entry. Story 8, I keep getting calls from a restricted number. I want to start by saying that, as a rule, I don't answer any phone calls from numbers I don't recognize. I have always said that if it's important, they can leave a message and then I can get back to them. For a long time, this worked out really well. I only got voicemails from co-workers, classmates, and the like. As someone who isn't a fan of phone calls, that's how I like it. Recently though, I've been getting calls from a restricted number. I rarely receive phone calls, let alone from restricted numbers. Now, restricted callers put me on edge on a good day, but they usually only call once and then it's over with. But this one is different. They call relentlessly. Like, multiple times an hour kind of relentless. For a couple days, I just declined the calls and tried to go on with my life. I told myself it was just some stupid kids pranking me or something and to just ignore them, they'll get bored. Today though, they finally left a voicemail while I was in class. It was mostly just scratching sounds and muffled arguing, like a pocket dial. I deleted it and slipped my phone into my pocket, only to have it ring again. Restricted number. Decline call. New voicemail. This time, the person on the other end of the call had the receiver close to their mouth, breathing into it. The voice I heard was slightly distorted, warbled, and unnaturally deep, like it was being electronically disguised. Answer your phone. I deleted the message and immediately searched ways to block a restricted number on Google. Spoiler, you can't. I thought that maybe things would be better if I just turned my phone off for the rest of the day. Holy shit, was I wrong? I just got home and turned my phone back on. There are 86 missed calls and 74 voicemails. I have listened to about 40 of them. At first, it was just iterations of the first one, with various curse words interjected. Then, they got specific. They're getting really scary. The person knows where I go to school, where I live, where my boyfriend lives. They want me to answer my phone. They have made it clear that they are fully capable of hurting me or my family, friends, and boyfriend. They've told me not to go to the police or they'll go after my sisters and the other people at their school. Every move I made today, from the second I stepped outside of my house, to my class schedule, and back home, they have recounted in detail. Have you ever had your outfit accurately described to you by someone you've never seen, down to the color of your nail polish? I have. Even while typing this, I've gotten several calls from them. I'm terrified. I have no idea what they could possibly want from me. I'm just a waitress working through college. I don't have any money to give, nor do I know any big secrets or anything like that. I know they won't stop calling me though. I could get a new phone number, but would it help if they know where I live? Probably not. They're calling again. Should I answer it? Story 9, knocks at 2 a.m. As an international student, I have to work a fair few jobs to support me. I have a job as a barista in the morning and then a paid internship during the day, and finally a waitress at a Turkish restaurant at night. As you can see, I'm completely occupied. This one particular day I was just not feeling it at all but really had to go as I needed the money. I was almost done with the day and my final front was the restaurant. Luckily as soon as I arrived, the owner gave me some food and asked me to be in front of a house for the first hour. During peak hours this meant attending reservation calls and getting people a table, But that day it was pretty chilled, so it was an easy job. Just as things were starting to pick up, it suddenly started pouring like no other. As someone who loves the rain, this made me feel a bit better. However, the business was affected and things slowed down. Noticing the lack of customers, my boss, surprisingly, told me to go home as there was nothing to do. It was raining and I got to enjoy it at home. This day was slowly turning around. It was around 8 p.m. so I decided to quickly grab some hot noodles from a local store I knew. They made their noodles crispy and spicy with extra egg for me. I also grabbed some of their fortune cookies. It was always fun reading what the universe has in store for me. It was just what I needed for today. I rushed home, which I share with 2 other people. It was a little villa surrounded by other independent villas. It was, overall, a pretty safe area. As soon as I walked in I could hear laughter from my roommate's door. So I decided to leave a few cookies for them as well. We usually shared food and whatever other treats we bought. I then went to my little room and got dressed in some comfy pajamas. My room is set up so the bed is parallel to the window. The window pretty much covers the entire wall so I can see everything outside. And for a day like today with rain and lightning, it was perfect. I turned off the lights and opened the curtains just enough to see the sky but not enough for that outside to see in. As I needed some light while I eat, I lit up a few candles and sat on my bed and ate my noodles. The noodles and the rain really made up for the slow miserable day I was having. Soon after dinner, I went into a deep slumber. At around 2 a.m., I heard someone knocking on the main door. Now in our house, if we ever were gonna have guests, we would inform everyone at home. I got no such message so it was extremely weird to hear knocking, especially at 2 a.m. I didn't go answer it as I figured someone else in the house might know about it and open the door. A few more knocks came. As I kept ignoring it, suddenly I heard someone knocking on my window. As the curtain was covering half my window I had no idea who it was. Finally, I decided to get out of bed and check who it was through the main door as it was next to my bedroom. I was careful not to step on any of the candles on the floor as they were still burning on my way out. I looked through the peephole and no one. Nothing was there. I figured whoever knocked had left. I rushed back to my room. Coming back to my room I saw something that scared the absolute shit out of me. All the candles, around 7, were blown off and the curtain on my window was fully opened. There was zero explanation to how this could happen. Panicking and scared I decided to wake my roommates. After knocking for ages, I realized she wasn't home. Weird, as she usually is home on Tuesdays. I went to my other roommate's door and started knocking. No response. So I opened her door to check, and sure enough, no one was there. The lights were off. Confused I closed her door and walked away. That's when I heard some more knocks. Except these knocks were not coming from the front door. It was coming from my friend's door I just closed. Extremely panicked I got a knife from the kitchen. I didn't know what was going on. What was knocking from inside my friend's room? Scared to go out and scared to stay in I quickly called my friend and asked them to pick me up immediately. I didn't really explain much, just that I was in trouble and needed help. The knock has started to increase and it's becoming louder and more violent. I got extremely scared to open the door. I asked if it was my friend but no reply. I checked to see under the door but there was nothing. Just darkness. What could be knocking? I quickly ran and stood near the main door so I can run out as soon as my friends came to pick me. I am so scared. I want to run out but I just heard some more knocks. I just can't believe this but it is coming from my room. It's also growing more and more violent. Guys, please help me. What do you think I should do? I am so scared. Story 10, This Is Not My Husband Update 3. Okay. So I'm not sure how to start this. I'm not a writer by any means, but Brooke has been keeping this documented, so I'll do my best. My name is Caleb. About 2 weeks ago my stepdaughter was in a car crash. Nothing serious, the doctors told us. But it turned out to be more serious than we expected. Brooke has been my life since her mom died, nearly 4 years ago. She's been a godsend, helping me regain some of the balance my world lost when my Debbie was called back to heaven. I've known her little quirks and habits that she's developed over the past 16 years. But nothing could have prepared me for losing my girl. She's been replaced by someone who looks exactly like her, has many of the same mannerisms, and has the same basic qualities, like kindness and humor. But this isn't my Brookie. This woman who is inhabiting my daughter's body is different. I've raised Brooke from a small child, and it's like the light in her eyes has faded. She keeps talking about her mother like she just spoke with her a few weeks ago. She's distant towards her son, Andrew. She didn't even know me, at first. I was flabbergasted. I've never encountered anything like this. When Brooke told me that she was from a different universe, I broke down. I'm man enough to admit it. I thought for sure she was losing her mind. I tried to hold her to me, like I've done so many times over the last 16 years, and she rebuffed me. I've always tried to show my emotions as much as I can around her. I've never been good at it, but I've tried. It's hard, especially since Debbie died. I'm rambling. Brooke isn't my Brooke. She says she came from another universe, and after the past few days, I'm inclined to believe her. Okay. So last week she ended up in the hospital again. I hadn't seen her in a while. That was my fault, for not keeping up with what she was doing. I know that, now. She complained that certain things were off. She knew Thomas, her husband, but not her son. She kept asking after a woman named Angel, Angie. Something like that. And her mother. She knows how hard it is for me to talk about Debbie, but it was like she didn't know her mother is gone. So they kept her over the weekend. She had a bunch of tests done on her, and the doctors put her on an antipsychotic, thinking it might help. All it did was make her tired and nauseous. I hated seeing my girl in that hospital bed, wrapped up in blankets and puking her guts out into a bucket. I mostly held on to Drew while Tom held Brooke's hand. Finally, my son Corey, Brooke's big brother, came to get Drew, and I focused on talking to the nurses and the occasional doctor that showed up. They ran more tests, whispered their findings to each other, and pissed me off, if you'll excuse the language, with their damned secrecy. Then they told me that Brooke, my little Brookie, had had a nervous breakdown and that they had to institutionalize my little girl. I fought with them, assured them that nothing was wrong and she just needed a little help around the house. Since I retired after Debbie died, I really don't do much except read the news, and go to the track. I bet occasionally, but mostly I go to People Watch. And watch the horses. I've always loved the sleek bodies of race horses. I told them I would help her out. I was overruled. Tom wasn't happy about it. Neither was I, but the doctors insisted that she be put away for her own safety. And the safety of others, if you can believe it. I don't believe it for one fucking minute, pardon my French. See, my Brooke is as tough as they come. And whether this woman is the one I raised or one from another universe, I don't know. What I do know, is that Brooke isn't going to lie down and accept the fact that she's in an institution. She's going to make it 10 times harder on herself, insisting she's from another universe, and end up in there for good. When they threw her in there, I was in charge of picking up her belongings. That included her cell phone. I spent a few minutes trying to figure out her PIN number, to get in. When I did, there were all these web pages open to show alternate dimensions, and how to transport between them. Then I found this account. I've read everything. Her words are true. I've never known my baby to lie. Not about anything like this, anyway. I'm not afraid to tell you all that I'm scared for her. I overheard the nurses saying something about hydrotherapy, or electrostimulation. I thought all of those archaic techniques went out in the 60s and 70s. I absolutely never thought I would ever hear them said in conjunction with my daughter. I'm not sure how I can get her to realize that I believe her. Sort of. I believe that she believes it. And she needs to play along with the doctors in order to be able to get out of there. Does anyone have any suggestions on how I can get a note to her? They have her in lockdown for the moment. No one can see her except the doctors and the nurses. They have another patient in the same room with her, they told me. She has company. A guy named Jason. I have no idea what he did to get put in there, but I could hear the screaming before I made it halfway down the hall. He keeps yelling about the FBI and a pilot and alternate realities. I wonder if he's from the same one as my Brooke. I'm truly scared. I haven't been this scared since Debbie passed. I don't think I could stand to lose Brooke too. And I'm not entirely sure how to help her. I'm posting this on her Reddit to keep you all informed, and to have documentation of what's going on. Hopefully she'll be released soon, and can update you all then. Until she can, keep your loved ones close. You never know when they'll be ripped from you. Story 11, The Grim Reaper was my childhood friend. When I was a young child, I had a series of reoccurring dreams. I would be places that I've never been and see people that I've never met, but they never saw me. It was almost like I was a ghost. The only person that could see me was a large dark figure, the Grim Reaper. I'd watch as it moved through the people, looking for that special someone whose time on Earth had come to an end. When the person was found, they would be lightly touched and then they would be able to see me, but not the Reaper. They always looked confused when they saw me, but within seconds they'd disappear and we'd be in a different place. It was never anything violent to watch. I was never scared, and I was never harmed. I never had any authority over who was chosen. And I never knew why I was chosen to accompany the Grim Reaper. Although, I always wondered if other people had the same experience. I always just thought it was a weird dream and thought nothing of it until I started to notice something. If I ever woke up during the dream and then eventually went back to sleep, I would come back to the Reaper, but we'd be someplace new. It was like I couldn't get rid of it, or it didn't want me to leave. I remember one occurrence very vividly. It was a party during the day. I was wearing a yellow dress and was sitting on a bench against a wall. Grim was moving through the people and searching. A young girl from the party, about my age, sat down on the bench next to me and started talking to me. She asked me who I was and if I had brought a present for the party. I answered her and we struck up a conversation about parties, cakes, and dogs. Eventually I asked her if she could see Grim and she said no and asked who that was. I was about to explain, but then she cut me off to ask where I had gone. She couldn't see me anymore. After that we were in a new place and the series went on. I had that same dream sequence for years, ages 4 or 5 until I was almost 10, until I had mentioned to my parents in passing. My parents are very Christian, so this worried them enough that they talked to their pastor friends about it. Eventually they had one of them pray for me and that night the dreams stopped. I'm 21 now and haven't had any more dreams like that until last night. This time Grim didn't have a figure, it was just a deep darkness. We were at opposite ends of a hallway and I stared into the darkness until it started to move towards me. I woke up before anything else could happen. I'm not sure if this means the Grim Reaper wants me back or if I'm next.